and welcome to Fine is a four-letter word. My guest today is Suresh Bhagchandani. I got that right?
Yes, solid
Oh,
A plus.
yay! We're off to a stunning start. Welcome to the show. We are, I like to start with digging in a little bit to your background and what were the values and beliefs that you were raised with that contributed to who you've become?
Oh wow. So my background actually, I was born and raised in India, and in like professional life, I'm actually a senior sales manager for a tech company. Not in that, like I'm actually an entrepreneur as well too. Myself, I have a small business which is a sock company, and as well, we are really big into like real estate investment as well too. So growing up, obviously, we grew up in a very poor family,
Wait,
but
why do you say obviously?
Um, it's kind of hard because sometimes, like, in like a third world country, it's very, like, I would say like 1% is probably like the
Mm,
rich people. And
okay.
I'm talking like I'm 42 years old, so I'm talking like long time. Like
Yeah.
these days things
Oh,
are,
yeah, so long ago.
these days more like I think 40% people are like rich, and then still like there's 60. But back in days it was like very different, and
Yeah.
the media was not there, social media was not there. Our
Yes.
parents were, there's like a single household income that you're surviving on, and then you're living in a joint family where, like, my grandma, she would have, like, three or four sons, and they all are working, and then everybody else would be a housewife. So there's no like dual income coming, and
Mm.
there was no mortgages at that point of time because you just had a legacy home that you live in. And like almost like 15, 20, I would say like, oh no, I would say 50, five to six family are just surviving in that house. So I mean, I grew up with that.
Okay.
The good thing, I would say, the best things that have actually come out from this is there's some sort of like spirituality aspect, which me and my family were like very very big into it since we were like growing up. And it's actually come a long way because a lot of times, like, I mean, I know people don't like to get into like too much deep into it because people think like it's like a cult and you're just into it. But I always see this as, it's like a way to kind of level set your day to day, or more like revamp, refocus, reset, if you go to a church or any other practices that you go on a Sunday. So I mean, you don't have to be that serious into it, but ideally, like, you're picking up certain ideologies to be, and we follow a non-denomination church. So, like, eating neat and clean food, be a good human being,
Hmm.
whatever you do to like make money, make sure you're doing like an honest and integrity, and then obviously, like, do the right thing. That's
Hmm.
pretty much simple and straightforward. And obviously meditation is like one part of it as well. But the core part is like, as long as you're a good human being and you're doing the right things will come along. And that's typically what we kind of grew up on. And I'm definitely, and I was, my father actually passed away when I was like fairly young. I was actually in fifth grade when my father passed away. So I have three sisters and I'm the youngest one. So my mom, who's actually now a widowed single mom, who actually raised all of us. And luckily, fortunately enough, that my mom's side's family used to live in the US, so we happened to actually migrate to US when we were fairly like young. So that was actually a blessing that sometimes when you live in this country and people do complain a lot, ask an immigrant. Trust me,
Hmm.
they will tell you all day, every day. And not even that, I will still tell you this, Laurie, that people are standing in line to get in this country. And then people sit, sometimes, sometimes you just have to appreciate what God has given you. And
Yeah.
you've just not seen outside, like, things could get very, very worst. So I'm the person who likes to appreciate what I have. And you always have to go by with a gratitude, saying, hey, I'm thankful for this thing. And I appreciate it because I don't deserve this, but I got it. So thank you. But yeah, that's the values, Laurie, I would say that we've been
Okay.
growing up on.
How old were you when you came to this country?
I was 21 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you had already been through all of your schooling. Not
Yeah.
undergrad. Well, yeah. Did you go to, you
Almost
went to
my
college here?
undergraduate was done. So I was just pretty much moving in. But then I started actually my undergraduate again. I went to UNC Chapel Hill for my undergraduate here.
Okay.
And I
It-
went to community college as well too in Goldsboro, North Carolina. That's where my mom's side's family actually lives. So,
So your whole family moved here when you were 21, your mom, your sisters.
no, my sisters were actually over 21 years old and they were married, so they did not. So it was just me and my mom.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And so you left behind all of that family, the other brothers, your uncles, everybody stayed. and you came here.
Yes.
And so how was it? You're so used to being in a close family unit. You said you all live together. And
Yes.
now you're not in that situation. How was that an adjustment?
Oh, major adjustment. I would say the first year was kind of like rough because I mean, people when you come to America, like obviously what you have seen in a movie or so, that you're like, oh my god, like seems like I'm gonna go to New York City, but not
Mhm.
everybody lands in New York City. And then
Right.
ideally, when you land in a city called Goldsboro, North Carolina, and that's where you're like, whoa, okay, this is America. Which I mean, obviously, like I was still happy, but it takes a minute to digest.
Mhm.
Oh wow, it's like a totally different culture. The people where they talk, it's totally different. People what they eat is totally different. And I'll give you like a very small example, Laurie. Even like a coffee. So if you have ever been like outside US, the coffee over there is made and served is very different. Where when you come to US, it's like a very brewed kind of coffee where
Mhm.
you put your own like milk and own sugar and everything else. That's not the case back home. So like that was like a big adjustment. I'm like, you go to the McDonald's or whatever to just pick up a coffee and you're like a coffee and then you just give you like a warm cup and then do whatever you want to do.
Uh-huh.
So that's where like something I was like learning. I'm like, oh, so I just make this and I thought you're supposed to make it accordingly.
Yeah.
So I mean that type of thing, like it's a big cultural piece because when you go into a community college, which is a very small city, their mindset is always, oh, I didn't go to high school with you because the first thing they ask you, like, oh, which high
Mhm.
school did you go to? And you tell them, hey, I went to high school in India. They're like, oh. So all of a sudden you're like, well, I have no idea who this person is because ideally I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I think the best part was when I got involved in that community college with some like volunteer activities and like student government and everything else. That's where I started making like good friends. And once you actually make like one or two friends, then you're like, all right, life is good. Like we're good. Like I have friends here. But till you don't make friends, that's where is the challenging part that I really have no friends here.
Yes, this is such an important point because it's a lot of people who are listening. And as you know, I recently moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, not really knowing a lot of people. And people have asked me, how did you so quickly make friends? And to your point, it's getting involved in things. Now, whether you're new to a city or not, if you want to make new friends, it would behoove you to get involved in some activities and not just sit at home watching TV, waiting for somebody to show up at your door and go, hey, want to share a pizza? Right?
I 100% agree with you, Laurie. And I think this is something I was telling to one of my coworker the other day that, even after college, being an adult, it's even worse to make friends because you have such an engraved kind of things and we were just connecting on like workouts in general. Like I'm more of a class kind of person. Like I like to go in the class and come back. And for me, after college, like we get college friends, but then how would I make some adult friends who are like about my like, but I don't want people from my work because
Yeah.
I see them. So you need somebody on an outside perspective. So I feel like that going to that class, which I go to F45, and I'm like, I get to meet similar minded, but then again over there as well too, there's some people who are like crazy fit that I'm like, okay, out of my league. I can't be like that insane into
You
like
could
hardcore
aspire.
workouts. And then some people who are like not even that serious. And I'm like, well, I am serious, but I need to find that mix of like somebody who has a job, somebody who just wants to get some sweat out for 45 minutes. They're healthy, so they can enjoy whatever food they want to eat and just go back to their life. And life
Hmm.
is already so busy that I can't just think about this 24/7. And that's where you meet the like-minded people because once you partner up with somebody, a boy, a girl, like whoever it is, and then you're like, oh, like seems like we'll just come in at noon and we'll work out and we go back to our work, whatever we got to do. So it's a way to make new friends. And assumingly, if they have kids too, then you're like, oh, let's do a play date. It's even better.
When you're a parent, a lot of people that's how they make, as adults, make friends is through their kids. And then you get to the point where a lot of people I know who are at that empty nest stage, and now they're like, okay, well, now how do I make friends? Because I can't, my kids are gone, and who do I use as a conduit to make friends now? And that's where sometimes Facebook groups or meetups, or like you're saying, the gym, or shared, activities that you're interested in, to go meet other people who are also interested in those
Yes.
activities. I want to step back a second. Did you speak English when you came here?
No, Hindi actually was my primary language, and then English was the secondary language. I mean, obviously in Asia, people do speak English, but it's more of a British English than
Hmm.
US English. So that was another piece that I had to kind of, I wouldn't say like learn, but I feel like, once you live here, you just kind of pick it up.
Mm,
And one
okay.
thing that kind of came in as a blessing for me was my family actually had like retail stores. So when you're working at a retail store, even if you have a terrible English, like 6 months, 2 months, you pick it up and then you kind of get better because you're talking to people
Yeah.
every
y-
single day
You're
over there.
forced to
So
use your
that's been a
English.
blessing, which obviously I
Okay.
would say like, if you didn't had that, I don't know how would I improve my skills.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. The immersion is the best way to learn a language.
Yes, like imagine if I want to learn Spanish, like the best thing is if I'm there for a month,
Mm-hmm.
you will pick up, even like my son who does not speak Hindi that much, but every time if he goes to India for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you could see like they pick up words, pick up sentences, pick up like how to way that they're hungry. I need food. Can I eat this? So they pick up things pretty fast. So imagine if you're there for a little bit more time,
Sure.
they almost start communicating well.
Do you speak to him in Hindi?
Yes and no, because he doesn't speak Hindi. So my mom actually lives with us. So I actually take care of my mom. She's actually a senior citizen now. So she would actually talk to him in Hindi. And that's how they kind of sort of communicate. So he will say something in English, and then she will say something in Hindi. And then he's like, okay, grandma, like I need milk. And then something along those lines. So that's how they communicate. So we're trying to actually make sure we take him to India like at least like once a year as he's fairly young. So at least he
Mm-hmm.
gets to know the culture and at least gets to see our family. Because once they're
Yeah.
a little bit older,
I'm
then they
always intrigued by people who, Americans, we only speak one language for the most part. I think that's pathetic. But but
oh,
when people speak other languages, I always find it fascinating whether they choose to or not choose not to teach their children their native language as they're growing up so that they could be bilingual or trilingual or what is it, quadrilingual, like the Europeans all speak like four or five languages. Yeah.
no, I think it's not that bad because typically in the house you do speak here and there. So they do kind of pick it up. So it's not that bad.
Mhm.
My ideology has been like, especially coming from a very different background. And given the fact like I'm a father, so I want to make sure like I do the right thing for the son, for my son, to make sure like any language that he wants to learn, it kind of benefits him to get a job. If he's at a situation where he needs to communicate to get a job or like move up in a career, or like he's trying to expand a market or something, like he should
Mhm.
learn. So that's something like we're trying to kind of like understand, like, okay, if you would like to learn like Spanish, it's probably like the easy one, or French. That's another one, because Latin America, I feel like it's a big market in
Mhm.
general.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the market that we all should kind of think through.
I want to pivot a little bit and talk about your career after you went through school because in
Mhm.
our pre-show conversation we were talking about how you got started in sales and the fine not fine point in there when that you hear everything is fine when we were talking about hitting quotas.
Yeah, so I started actually at fairly, it was like a startup, and it was like a monthly quotas type of thing. And when your boss actually just tells you like, oh, it's completely fine, it's okay, you'll be fine. And then every single month, like, you have to hit numbers, and if not, you might not have a job month after and month after. But my biggest thing, and again, kind of going back to your methodology as well too, when they say like it's completely fine, 1 month goes by, a quarter goes by, it just kind of like that whole word just goes in your mind over and over, and you're like, why is this fine? This should not be fine. Like, I
Are
mean,
they
we need
saying
to
it's
end this
fine?
cycle.
Are they saying it's fine because they don't want you to panic or because
Yeah,
like
they're like,
what's
it's
the
completely
reason?
fine, it will come in, it will come in. And it's not even a panic, it's more like, how about, like, we put some time and energy into, like, I be a great salesperson where I don't have to worry about this, like, because the first thing that comes in your mind is like, oh my god, like, I might not have a job, what will I do?
Hmm.
So if I'm putting some resources towards myself, where I'm doing my own self development to make sure I'm learning how to sell, the methodologies, how to do the account reviews, how to negotiate a deal, like all these things, like if I'm putting that thing to myself of learning and development, then I don't really care what they say. Fine, not fine. I have kind of like given that ammo to myself that I could be in any role. I can pick up the phone call and start talking to customers and start selling them. Then I don't have to like worry about it. Like, oh, it will be fine. It will be okay. Don't worry.
You did that on your own, the self-development and personal growth.
Yes.
Do you think that it is the responsibility of a manager to put those kind of opportunities in front of somebody, or do you think it's your personal responsibility to find them on your own outside of work?
I think it depends on the individual. Like somebody like me who's a very highly ambitious person, where I was looking at a more of a 10-year plan in this job, then some people are just looking for a job like, hey, I got paid today, that's all I care about, then they're good. For me, when I'm looking for a 10-year plan as to how am I going to survive in this career path, or how am I going to survive in this role, then I have to like kind of like think outside the box, look up like some of the industry leaders. And not even that, like sometimes you have to, there's a term called manage your manager. You probably have to like ask him or her saying, hey, what else could I do? Or if they are not bringing any talent on the table, then you just have to take your talent in your own hand and say, hey, I'm going to go and self develop myself and just figure out like, because if you're in a, we live in an age where thanks to internet, like, I mean, we have so much information, and obviously like, it's up to you how you want to use it. And I think I like to use it on what can I do to make myself better, what can I do to learn, what could I do to where what Suresh was last month, what is he this month.
Hmm.
That's literally been the goal, and I'm hoping that it kind of translates to my son or even to my family sometime, because I think my wife actually is in the same direction as well too, because if we are not improving ourselves, then it's pretty much like, same strategy. Say, well, it's completely fine, it's okay, life just goes on, you get a job, you get a paycheck, and don't think about any goals or dreams. Just you're just a 9 to 5 guy and or girl. You just go home and don't dream about anything expensive that you want to buy, because then you're just like, well, I'll wait for my paycheck.
Yeah, this is interesting because we're talking about fine as it equates to being complacent. That it's okay that you're not hitting your goals, or it's okay that you're not growing. It's okay to be, this is different than it's okay to not beat yourself up for not
Mhm.
being some kind of, superstar, or being what you think like, oh, I should be at a different place at this point in my life, and beat yourself up for that. That's not what we're talking about.
Yes.
But allowing yourself to just kind of float along, accepting whatever is put in front of you is different.
Even there are situations, Laurie, like in a corporate world, like, you get passed out on promotions. Like, I mean, I was thinking about like into sales leadership, and I still remember, I think I had to like apply like 3 or 5 times, and they were like, "Oh, you're a great candidate, X, Y, Z. It's an internal role." And I would, and again, it was like, "Oh, it's completely fine. Like, you're a great salesperson. Like, you're one of the person who's like a top attainer, XYZ." And that's where like you ask them like, okay, it's not fine. I need a candid feedback. I don't need the corporate feedback where you're saying next time, like just tell me things that I need to work on and I will work on it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, like with the legal boundaries and everything else, they might not probably share that with you. And that's where you have to kind of like step out the boundaries saying, okay, I'm going to figure it out myself to see what can I do to run a sales team? Like what kind of things or qualities that I need to put it in myself and just self-learn it. And then when that time comes, then probably a leader will say, well, Suresh is the guy that I want to like run my team.
But not everybody has the self awareness, maybe, to figure that out on their own. And I think this is where mentors can come in.
Oh, yes. Oh
You
my
know, so
God. It's
you're
like another
saying,
godsend blessings.
yeah,
Yes.
so you're
You
saying,
have to have
the
mentors to
managers,
survive. Yes.
don't want to tell you because of political, like
Yeah.
whatever. So they don't want to give you the bare truth, even though it would be helpful. And whereas a mentor or a champion, which I think are two different things in companies, could give you the valid and honest feedback without
Oh, yeah.
being afraid that they're going to be reported to HR or something.
Yeah. I think mentors are very, very important. And this is something like one of my friend actually says, like you should have your own board of directors.
Hmm.
As to depending on how you're feeling, like you need some career help, you should have that board of director. Like you should have a person on that seat. You need like some sort of like outside work advice, like how can I stay healthy? You need some sort of like a savvy fashion advice. You should have that person as your board of director. You should have somebody you just want to call and just, hey, I just want to rant, I just want to talk. I want to talk about day to day like gossips or whatever. Like you should have that person that you can call and say, I just want to have coffee. Do you want to
Yeah.
meet up? I need something outside perspective of my work, outside perspective of my family, probably outside perspective of my gym buddies that I hang out with. I need a different friend and I need you and he or she is my board of director, where we just go hang out because we're kind of connected, but not really cross paths. So I get a totally different overview of what they go through in day to day life, and I get to share mine, and then we get to connect on a very different level. We're like, oh wow, I never thought that this thing actually exists. Thank you for enlightening me.
Yes,
And that's why you need those board of directors as mentors.
I love this idea of having a board of directors for it could be for your career, but it's really more for your life overall.
Mhm.
And your career is one piece of that. And so you have people in those seats, just like a company has a board of directors. You
When you're the
have,
CEO and you have 8 board of
yes,
directors, means 8 different things, and you just call them up saying, "Hey, I need you. You're up."
yes,
And they're like, "Sure.
yes.
What do you need, Laurie?"
I've seen this somewhere, I don't know, probably on social about the different kinds of friends that you need, but this is different. They may be friends, but this is even a higher level of that. You know, you have friends that you might go to the gym with and friends that you might go shopping with. This is more a board of directors for your entire life, not just.
Yeah, and sometimes spirituality, you need that person in that board of directors. Say, and again, like Laurie, I think you and me, we talk like in life, you need everything.
Hmm.
You just don't need a job. You just don't need extra money. You need spirituality. You need love. You need a career. You need a family. You need a kid. You probably need an ugly boss as well too, who's probably like giving you some hard time, because that's how a human being is going to get better. And then
Hmm.
sometimes you need that good mentor who's like, "Hey, you're doing great. That's life."
Hmm.
It's a what do you call, blessing in disguise, that somebody's giving you a hard time means that's great. So you need everything. You have to go work out as well too, but then you want to go enjoy food as well too, because in life we're humans, like, we want everything. But I feel like the balanced approach is the right way, but you just can't give up and just cut things off saying, well, I'm not going to hang out with this person, or I'm not going to eat pizza moving forward. Like, we're humans. Like, I have emotions. Like, I'm a normal human being.
Yeah.
I have to eat that, so in order to eat that I need to go work out. Simple. Like,
Yeah.
you need everything in life. So you need your mom as well too, because there'd be times like the mom is the one who's going to come in, and then there's times where the wife is the one who's going to come in for your like understanding. Okay, I need my wife today, or I need my son. Like, it's just everything that in life that goes wrong. People just go like cold turkey on certain things. I just think that's a wrong strategy. Where as a human being, you need everything, good, bad, ugly, but you just need to make sure where to draw the line, saying this was good enough. I got to move on. I have responsibilities, and then again you come back.
Hmm. How do you decide when something is good enough versus, since you're such a driven and a high achiever, how do you go, okay, this is good enough versus it's not my best effort. I
I
could do
always go
better.
by this thing called discipline equals to freedom. So whatever the time frame that I have gotten in my heart, I know for a fact that I gave my 100%.
Okay.
And even at my work, there's something I tell them like, "Hey, whatever salary that you give me, I'm going to put in my 122%, 120% effort for you. Same thing I'm going to do with my team. I'm going to coach them to hit 120% quota, because I'm just not going to coach you for 100%. But that's one thing is in my power. I'm going to do that. 9 to 5 that you're telling me, I'm going to put in my 120% effort, because I'm not going to sit and make excuses to say, oh, I was busy and XYZ, because these days people who are working remote, they can make up anything they want, and your bosses are thinking like, "Oh my God, he's so busy, my God," and then those are the people who are gone in no time.
Hmm.
So I can sit there and make excuses, and my boss would be okay, but deep down in my heart, I would not. It just won't digest well for me. So that's what I would do. Is like, hey, I would give them that 120%, and once that 5 o'clock is done, we're done. Then
I
I'm moving
like
on to my other ventures.
I liked your 122% number better. What you said first, and then you
At least I
corrected
feel
yourself
good. Like,
back
when
to
I go to sleep,
120.
I don't have to think twice. I don't have to like worry about it that, oh man, I was supposed to do this work. I was, but got sidetracked over there. Now I got to wake up like late in the night. And that's one of the biggest challenges as a human being. And I feel like as being a father and have a family and who has a very high demanding job, and you have very big aspirations, that at work we are thinking about our home stuff, and when you're home, because you didn't do your work during the work hours, at home when you're around your family, then you're thinking about, I got to submit this, I got to work on the slides, I got to respond to this person. Oh my. When there was time you didn't do it, and you ruined the both sides. So that's where you just rip the
Yeah.
band-aid, and you're home, spend time with family, know their thing. When you work, you work.
We talked a little bit about the fine in relation to being complacent. Was there a time in your life when you told people around you that everything was fine, but it wasn't?
Lots and lots of times, like when you're a sales leader, there are lots and lots of different times that you have to actually tell your team, like, oh, it's completely fine. Like, even this is probably my fourth or fifth acquisition that I've actually survived. And there have been times, and a lot of times, like, to be honest with you, I can only share what my understanding is. And
Hmm.
sometimes things might be something else, right? So all I could do is tell them fine, but sometimes you feel like, I don't know if this is the right thing or something, but I'm just pretty much the messenger at that point of time. Like, I'm going by whatever my boss tells me.
Yeah.
I'm just relaying the information, but deep dive. And that's where, like, you can tell them the fine, but you kind of have to like coach them in a very different way to tell them, life doesn't revolve around just a job that you have. Let's start thinking bigger. Let's start thinking on a 50,000 high feet level. Let's stop worrying about small things. Like, life is too small to worry about small things. Let's start thinking about big picture. And I think I would challenge you, regardless of what happens next week, I want you to think big. You deserve big. You can probably make more money somewhere else. You have a big potential. So I don't want you to just give up. And I know it might hurt for you like a day or two, but I just want you to start challenging yourself. And I think that's where a sales leader, or even like I tell them, like, hey, find a mentor. I would love to actually pair them up with saying, hey, this person or this girl would be a perfect personality match for you two. And I think you both should connect and probably spend like bi-weekly or once a month time, and they can probably turn you into a better person.
What you just said something, and I was going to jump in with a comment or a question, and now I forgot what it was, but that's okay. We'll come back to it. Uh, we talked about being comfortable. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. The book 10x is easier than 2x. Have you read that? Because when you were
No,
just
actually,
talking
one of my
about
mentors
thinking
recommended me
bigger,
and read that. Yes,
it reminded me of that. It's Dan Sullivan and what's his name? Benjamin Hardy.
yes,
Hmm.
it's one of my books to
Great,
read.
great
Actually,
book.
I'm just finishing up the Atomic Habits. Like, I'm reading it like third time.
Oh
I read it like
yes,
I think almost a year ago, so I'm just trying to get back into it.
that
But
that
that's the
is
next one in line actually to
that
read.
is
Yeah.
on my bookshelf back there.
Oh, it's
It,
like the holy grail of
yeah, so
leadership. Yeah.
good, so good. Before we go, and as we get near the kind of near the end of our conversation, um, talk a little bit about getting and staying comfortable being yourself, because
So
we had talked about this being, as something related to being fine but not being fine, is that not feeling comfortable with who you are.
Um, you will. So one thing I will tell you is, at any point of time when you're not feeling comfortable with somebody delivering a message to you, or so, your body and your mind has this way of giving you that, hey, something is just not adding up. This is not what I am. Because it's that, probably going back to your book, it's that very small voice in your heart that comes up saying, this doesn't sound right. And then we kind of suppress that voice and then go back to saying, it's completely fine. My boss said it's completely fine. My neighbor said it's good. My coworker said life is good. I look at the media, we're good. Everything is good. And that's what the biggest challenge as a humans we do is, like, we just kind of like suppress that voice. And that's where we need to make sure we give the balanced approach. Like, yes, that's the right thing, but let's give it a thought. Like, even if you're being a devil's advocate, and this is something I like to do, is I'll write down on a piece of paper 10 good and 10 bad things before even making a decision, so I know which one do I want to gear towards, how
Hmm.
worse this will affect my decision, and how best I'm going to get to. And then I'll quickly figure out, like, well, it's the right thing to do or not. And I'm like, yep, it's the right thing to do. Or like, in short run, no. In long run, yes, that's the right thing to do. So I'm going to do it.
How did you learn this? Because was there a time in your life or a place in your life where you were not comfortable being yourself, and that you had to step into this, find tools and techniques that would help you be more who you are?
I would say mentors actually come in really handy. And there was a point in time, and I feel like everybody who's doing a 9 to 5 job, they're probably thinking through this at some point of time, and they just kind of suppress that voice. Because
Mhm.
if you're ambitious, if you like to have a very luxurious lifestyle, or you want to grow big, everybody knows 9 to 5 is not where it is. But you do need 9 to 5. Nobody's saying don't do that. But you have to kind of like gain some more extra skills and figure things out. Probably yourself, probably a mentor will actually help you. In this, in my case, one of my mentors early on, and he was one of the college professors, where I was at a point where I would be very, very stingy on things, where I would like save pennies and this and that. And even for gas station, I'm looking at like, oh, 2 cents, 3 cents. And this is one thing like one of my professors said, like, hey, Suresh, it's a good thing that you're doing. And that's where we grew up, because I said, like, we
Mm-hmm.
grew up in a poor family. So it was like, just savings. That's it. Just saving, saving, saving. There's no way to like, and that's what one of my professors actually mentioned to me is like, Suresh, it's a good thing to do. But I think if you really twist this piece to saying, what can you do to make more money? All I will
Mm-hmm.
ask you is this question: find ways to make more money. Then you don't have to worry about saving a 10 cents, a dollar, or I shouldn't eat out, or if I eat out, I shouldn't order this, or I shouldn't buy this. I'll wait for this to go on sale. All these things will go out of the window, Suresh, if you just consistently keep looking for ways how you can make more money. Whatever you're making, find it. How else can you make up another $5,000? So when you're flying, you don't have to think twice. Can I go in this flight? Or if you're trying to buy something, you don't think twice, because you're finding more creative ways to make money, and you're good. So that was one of the biggest thing that I got when I was in college early on. And once I graduated, and that's what I kind of took it to my heart. And I'm like, that's true. I don't need to worry about how can I save or should I wait. Let's find some creative ways where I can do more and make more money on top of my 9 to 5 job and after 5 o'clock, because you have so much time. So you're not thinking twice.
Mm-hmm. So you weren't comfortable being in that position where you had to count pennies
Yeah,
and
no, it's not fun. It's
right.
definitely not fun. And it's like it's more like a demeanor too sometimes. You're like, my God, like, I worked so hard, like, and I can't afford this, where all my other friends can do it. And it's okay, and it's not a wrong thing or right thing, but as a human being, if you like something to do and you deserve it, I think you should. And that's where deserving means you're working hard. So you are not making enough money to deserve this. So you got to like step up your game to figure out how can you afford this. That's all. And we live in an age where money is just a commodity. Like back in days, I could say like, oh my God, you're talking $100. Whoa. And these days, $100 is like a bare minimum. So like times have changed. There are ways to actually make money has changed. Way to kind of like change yourself has changed. And that's one thing like every single person needs to kind of realize and say, what exactly are your ambitions? Are you really doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And it could be growing at your job. It could be growing somewhere outside, picking up something that you like to do.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong in that.
Being intentional about
Yeah,
the actions you take. And is it
100%.
is that is what you're doing moving you forward toward what you would like to have in your life, or are you just being busy
Yeah.
and just being on a hamster wheel that's not taking you anywhere?
Right, 100%. And same thing goes for spirituality as well too. A lot
Yeah.
of times, like, you don't want to be close to the God or whatever path or so people follow, because you want to make sure certain decisions you make in your life, some things are shortcuts where you're like, okay, that's not the right thing to do, because that will get me away from my path.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to make sure, like, hey, it might be a long path, but I got to work. But as long as I'm consistent, like as Atomic Habit says, you got to keep consistency. Like, you just got to keep going, and that's for you. Like, just it just kills it, and you're like, oh, that's it. This is exactly what you're looking for.
Consistency and keep going and making sure that you are going in the right direction, because if you're
Yes.
consistently going in the wrong direction, you're going to end up somewhere you don't want to be. And it comes back to asking that question, which in my solo episode that I did for in the middle of February, there was a solo episode I did called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It, based on that book by Kamal Ravikant. And the question, asking yourself the question, if I loved myself, would I? What would I stay in this job? Would I stay in this relationship? Would I allow somebody to talk to me that way? Whatever it is, asking yourself this question, if I loved myself, would I? And as a way to
I love that.
direct
Actually,
your
I'm going to put
intention.
that. Yeah, I might actually write a post on LinkedIn as well too. It's a great, great tool, by the way,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
actually changes the whole mindset too. Because any small, big decisions that you're trying to figure out, that which way should I go, and it's literally you have a picture right in front of you, like yes, no,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to go in this direction.
Absolutely. Before we close out, the question that I love asking at the end: what's the song you listen to when you need an extra boost of energy?
Oh gosh, there's like so many of them. Started from the bottom, from Drake, Jay Z actually. Like Blueprint is like some of my favorites.
Yeah, I
Any of
think
those.
you had said there was a Drake song that you had on your
Yeah, probably
information.
that. Or there's another one from Drake called "Working on the Weekends." I mean, as you say, like working on the weekends, just like usual, and that is
Mm.
true. So
Well, for you, I don't know. Not
I know,
everybody needs to work on the weekends.
I know. Yeah. But just like the song just connects to my like day to day life. I'm like, that is
Yes.
you. Yes.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And lastly, if somebody wants to continue this conversation with you, where is the best place for them to reach you?
Oh, follow me on LinkedIn. My name is Suresh Bhagchandani. Probably that's the only one that you're going to find. It's very, very easy to find me. So yes, happy to.
I will put a link to that in the show notes. That's in fact how you and I met, was through
Yes,
LinkedIn.
yes,
So yeah, how I meet lots of people. It's such a great platform. Suresh, thank you so much for joining me today. Unfine is a 4-letter word.
yes. Thank you so much, Laurie. It was great chatting with you.
All right, stay put here and you're